All right. Good afternoon.
Hey, how you doing?
Fantastic, Michael. How about yourself?
Yeah, really good. Busy, but good, man. Good.
Love to hear it. All right. See some people trickling in.
Hi, Steve.
Good afternoon, Bo.
How you doing?
I'm doing fabulous. How about yourself?
Good. Hanging in there. I got a
Love to
friend
hear
who's going to be a fly on the wall today, sit next to me.
it. Is that
And,
Shane?
No, this is another friend of mine, Lou. Lou, step over here and just say, hey. Let me.
Hi.
Lou is not part of MFMIM, but he's an
Welcome.
investor that yeah, I'll be taking for a ride here shortly.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thank-
Fantastic. Glad to have him join. All right. Christine, you want to pull up the presentation? We have a few hospitality assets to run through, and I think Dan is running a few minutes late, but he has a few office to multifamily conversion opportunities that we're going to take a look at. Let's see here. I'm just checking my messages while you pull that up. Okay, perfect. Yeah, he's going to be jumping in on the second half. All right, so let's jump right into it. Got a lot of opportunities. We've taken a big step, if not just jumped right into the pool of office to multifamily conversions. Dan has kind of spearheaded that attack. So we'll be adding that to the second half of our presentation for today. Nick is now a proud father. He and his girlfriend gave birth, I think 2 nights ago, to a 8-pound, 8-ounce bouncing baby boy by the name of Atlas. And so he is on maternity leave or paternity leave until I think next week. So we'll be shelving our retail to self-storage conversion opportunities until then. We do have a handful of opportunities that we are transacting upon, but we'll let him provide those updates on next week's call. We'll start today's call with the Hometown Suites in Louisville, Kentucky. This is a hotel to multifamily conversion. Next slide, Christina. Jumping into the property summary. This particular asset was open, it looks like, back in 1997. Been renovated in 2018. It's got 141 non-smoking guest rooms. It's a three-story exterior corridor hotel. It's an extended stay with some kitchenettes, and it's in a great market, great opportunity. Something that we're looking at. It's 139 surface spaces, which is basically leaving us about 1 parking space per room, which is a bit of a concern. We certainly like to see more parking. So something we'll look into a little deeper if and when we have an offer that's accepted. Currently sitting on 2 1/3 acres, zone CM, so it does allow for the conversion to multifamily. Yeah, let's go into the next slide here. Here are some pictures of the asset in question. Roof looks like it's in good shape. Again, an exterior corridor. So what you're seeing there are not balconies, but exterior corridors. Sits fairly close to some residential, some high density residential. Has some great frontage. And overall a good looking asset. Next slide. Here are some pictures of the interiors. As you can see, it has a stove cooktop, 2 burner, sink there just off to the left for micro countertops. Floors look like they have been updated recently. I think that's probably part of the 2018 renovation. Another interesting fact on this is it looks like there are some interior sprinklers, which you can see along the wall. Another thing that we look for are those electrical boxes in the room. So I believe that box right there above the second bed would be an electrical panel, which means that we have the necessary load to support kitchenettes, which would make sense being the fact this is an extended stay to support the additional appliances. You see a refrigerator and microwave in the picture as well. So overall, good looking asset. Rooms look like they're in good shape. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And let's check out the location a little closer. So here is a 10,000-foot view of the asset in question, sitting on Taylorsville Road. You do have some high density multifamily surrounding the asset, so certainly would bode well for the conversion. Overall, great looking location. It definitely has a nice look and feel. Let's go ahead and look at the next slide.
Steve, hey,
Yes,
Steve,
sir.
while you're on that picture, if you go back, if you don't mind,
Yeah,
I'm
Christine,
noticing
can we go back one slide. There we go. Yes.
I'm noticing a big grassy buffer between your property there and the ones to the left, towards the
Yes.
rear of the property. The grassy.
Christina, can you hold it there for a second? There you go.
Okay, that's quite all right. You see where the line takes the sign Hometown Studios and points
I
to the
do.
building? Just
do.
under that line, that grassy buffer there, could that be turned into more parking?
That would be
Where's the
something that
property line?
yeah, that would be something we would certainly explore, being that it
Okay.
only has one parking space per unit.
Yeah,
That would be an ideal situation where we could add some additional parking.
Okay.
Don't know what the setbacks are at this time. So if and when we were to get it under LOI, that would be something that we would look a little further at by doing like a site survey, kind of seeing what the property lines look like and understanding more about the setbacks for the property.
you mentioned setbacks. Are you telling, in my experience, parking is allowed to go up to a 0 lot line, but well, maybe it's location dependent. I don't know. In your experience, do you find a setback that doesn't allow parking right up to the property line?
It's location dependent.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yeah, location dependent. It's kind of a case by case. Never want to lead off with any assumptions. So it would be safe to say that we'd want to explore that further to see if we would be able to add some more parking. At a minimum, probably another 30 or 40 spaces to allow for some guest parking. But again, just unknown. I typically like to, and I tell this to my acquisition managers, let's look at the back of the napkin underwriting just to see what our strike price would be if and when the seller were to accept. And then we typically will stress the deal and see whether or not it makes sense to go to a PSA. With that being said, parking is one of those areas that we want to look closely at because we certainly don't want to have a multifamily apartment complex with not enough parking.
Great. Good answer. Thank you.
My pleasure. Any questions on this slide or a follow-up on Bo's question there? All right, Christina, now you can change to the next slide. All right. So a little more detailed on the property, you kind of see some cross streets. Overall, a great looking location, certainly has some potential and something that we would welcome as far as a conversion. Go ahead, next slide. And let's look at the analytics. So when I say back of the napkin underwriting, this is kind of the key metrics we look at prior to doing any underwriting. We want to understand how the market's performing. So first and foremost, with anything when it comes to real estate, when you're talking about the 10 points of interest, the top 3 is going to be location, location, location. So looking at the 12-month absorption, we see it has 115 doors. A little on the low side, but being a smaller market, that should suffice. But if you look at the population growth, those growth numbers are not super exciting. In an ideal situation, one of the things I tell my team to look at is, look at the population growth to be in excess of 5% or more. In some areas of the country, it's as much as 15%. We would consider that an emerging market. Does that make sense to everybody? Awesome. Next we look at is the, oh, Christina, back one slide. Thank you very much. Next we look at is the market sale price per unit. So at 137,000, a bit on the low side, especially depending on the price per key. So we'll look at that next. Looking at the cap rate at 5.4, which is good to go. Studio rents are on the low side. So I like to see my studios to be somewhere in the 9s or greater. At 786, that's probably more than likely for a market rate and market size studio, which could be somewhere around 400 to 500 square feet. In most cases, these hotel rooms are going to be somewhere around 280 to 330 square feet. So that's immediately going to bring up a concern there. Those rents look a little on the low side. And let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Checking out the rent comparables, we see that the average is 812. So that kind of solidifies a bit of a concern there. A little bit on the low side, but not necessarily enough to kick this out the door. So we'll go ahead and underwrite this, and let's go to the next slide and take a look at the underwriting. Oh, before we do so, here are the rents. So looking at the size, you can see the studios are averaging around 480 to as little as 325. There's one misnomer at 100 square feet, which brings up a bit of a concern, but I would probably eliminate that when looking at the market rate. Most importantly, we look at the price per square foot. And as you can see, those averages are somewhere in the low 2s, high 1s. Typically, we want to see somewhere around $3 a square foot. But again, this is in Louisville, Kentucky, so it's a smaller market. So it could potentially work based upon the transaction or cost per key. Next slide. Here's the underwriting. Oh, back one slide. So this is based upon, I think, an asking price of 7.5, which is a little on the high side. As you can see, it does not pencil. Christina, do you recall what number would be an ideal strike price for this particular property?
It doesn't pencil, not even on a lower price.
Yeah, and that's probably largely due to the fact that the cost per door, we're looking at, somewhere around, the interiors are on the lower side, but the CapEx is just going to basically kill this deal. The rents are low, so it's something that we decided to basically pass on. Does that make sense to everybody? Fantastic. Let's look at, oh, here we go. Here's some notes. So asking price 7.5. According to the broker, property is currently in agreement and asked me to get back to them next week. So I guess it's under contract, probably more than likely with another hotel motel operator.
Yeah.
So that would be my guess based upon its asking price. Certainly could work as STRs or as a motel, but not as a multifamily conversion. And we had reached out to Jefferson Town Planning Department for the requirements for the conversion process, but certainly put this on the back burner based upon the fact that the asking price is way out of what we would consider reasonable for this type of conversion. And it could be largely to the fact that it's a little bit newer than what we typically look at. So it's a 1996 build, renovated in 2018. So certainly still has a lot of life left as a hotel motel in that space. All right, let's look at hospitality asset number 2. What's going on, Eugene? Long time no see.
Hey man,
How's
all
things?
good.
How's
All
San
good.
Francisco treating you?
I don't know, man. I don't go there a lot.
Smart man. Smart man.
I'm just right outside. I'm I go usually the other way.
Stay out of the city, right? Stay out
I
of that
know
city.
it's I know
I get it. I get it.
it's a big conversation for another day.
Yeah, I understand. All right, so the next property we're looking at is in one of the states I'd love to do some transactions in. This is in North Carolina, more specifically Wilmington. This is the Roadway Inn and Suites of Wilmington. Let's go ahead and take a look at this a little deeper. Next slide. So back up one. All right, one more. I think Christina's getting a little excited with her slideshow. All right, so looking at the property, sits very nicely. As you can see with the pictures, looks like a nice clean asset. I don't know when these pictures were taken, but asphalt looks like it's in good shape. Looks like it's been recently striped in some areas. So the owner has reinvested some of their capital into the property. Love that American flag. Next slide. All right, let's jump into it a little deeper. Here is the property summary. At 5025 Market Street, property was opened in 1972. It is franchised, 120 keys, 2-story exterior corridor, has some meeting space, about 3,000 square feet, which would be ideal for some coin-operated laundry and or some self-storage. Seems to have enough parking spaces at 1.33, but again, it's really, location specific. And it's sitting on 4.5 acres, so it has a nice piece of land that's going with it. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next slide. And here are some pictures. Roof looks a little weathered, could use some updating on that roof. It looks like it's a TPO. Not sure why that's discolored the way it is, but it's probably just age. That front building looks like it's been addressed a little sooner. Building looks like it's in good shape on the exterior. And here's a couple pictures of the rooms themselves. Looks a little small based upon that vanity being out in the sleeping area. So that leads me to believe that these rooms are going to be a little smaller in size. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Let's take a look at the location, the 10,000-foot view. Yeah, so it's sitting on Highway 17, which is considered Market Street. We got a shopping mall to the far right. We got some fast casual dining in the area, and it looks like some high density multifamily just behind it. So certainly a great potential for conversion to multifamily. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide and take a look at the analytics. So back to the napkin, we want to look at the absorption. 167 doors are being absorbed on an annual basis. Medium household income is a little on the lower side, and population growth immediately brings up a concern at a negative 2.5. So Wilmington being a smaller market, I'm assuming that people are moving to larger markets. The price per door on exit is definitely substantial at $174K. And the rents are in the realm of possibilities. Again, I think by looking at those earlier pictures, my guess is these rooms are going to be a little smaller in size. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide and check out some rent comparables. So 223 square feet is renting for $790. That's certainly respectable. That's $3.54 per square foot at 0.18. So those are some great comps for some rent comparables. Let's go to the next slide. Let's take a look at some underwriting. And this is a return. These are returns at a $5 million purchase price. Asking price. What's the asking price, Christina?
9 million.
9 million. Okay, that is a long ways away. Did we submit an LOI on this one?
Yes, we sent an
Okay.
LOI for 5 million.
Have we got a response back from the broker?
Not yet. I just sent an email to follow up, and I sent an email again this morning, and I have not received any response yet.
Christina, you're the best. You're up Bass. So yeah, this would certainly work at about 41,000 a key. I typically, again, want to see the price per key to be less than a third of the asking price. So if you look at the all-in total hard cost, add that to the price per key, that's going to be somewhere in the low 70s. And if you recall, looking at the back of the napkin underwriting at the exit price per door, we were somewhere in the high 170s. But then again, that's at a $5 million purchase price. With this being a 1970 build, I think that would make sense for us to transact and move forward. Certainly could get investors interested in this project if and when we get a response back on that offer. So it's kind of a wait and see, submit those LOIs. You just don't know unless you try. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Right, Dan? I see you joined us. Glad to have you. You're on
Yeah.
mute, but I
Yes,
see you
yeah,
nodding.
there we
I
go.
see you nodding. It's my favorite
Yeah.
saying. That's my saying, right? Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Yes, it is.
All right, let's go to the next slide and look at our hospitality asset number 3 for today's presentation. And now we're moving out to the right coast, out in Coca, Florida. My favorite state for conversions. This is an interesting picture. Certainly weathered would be an understatement. Looks like we have some mold remediation necessary. Even on the stucco, it's moldy. I don't know if anyone has traveled to Florida, but it is a humid state, but one that's growing tremendously, somewhere around 1,200 to 1,500 people per day. And certainly would like to look at this a little closer. This is the type of asset I like to buy, distressed. This is distressed with a capital D. Let's jump into it. Next slide. And let's take a look at the property summary. All right, so this is a travel lodge opened in 1975. It is franchised, and you guessed it, permanently closed. That construction yellow tape would be a leading indicator. Again, built in 74, opened in 75, 152 keys, which is my sweet spot. Two-story hotel, exterior corridor with some eating space. Sitting on a nice piece of land of 8.5 acres. So 8.5 acres, zone CG, so we can definitely convert to multifamily. And it does have, I think, the minimum requirement as far as parking when it goes to converting to multifamily at 1.2 spaces per room. Next slide. Here are some pictures. I think these pictures are probably when this asset was probably in production and operating as a hotel. Asphalt looks like it's in decent shape. Overall sits on a very nice piece of land on a major thoroughfare. It's got some great signage. All in all, looks great and a wonderful potential for a conversion to multifamily if we can get to that strike price. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next slide. All right, so location, let's see here. Okay, up there, and I'm a little colorblind, but it's up there in that top triangle there. I see the pin now sitting in a great location. Has some great highway frontages, 524 and 95. We got a mobile home park. We got some residential, we have some high density multifamily. Looks like we have a park, the Mike Berdeman Toyota dealership. There's a Sam's Club. These are all great indicators that this is a growing market. Next slide. And one more slide. Another great picture. Let's take a look at the analytics. All right, so growing, it's a growing market. Population growth is a little on the lower side, but I really like that exit price per door at 270K. Rents are strong, and the absorption is adequate at 337 doors. So these are all I would consider 4 positive thumbs ups. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next slide. And here are some rent comparables. So yeah, renting a little north of $2, just under $3, just over $3 a square foot. So those are great rent comps. Very close by. Next slide. Let's take a look at the underwriting. And okay, what was this? It looks like it's not penciling. I'm assuming the seller wants way more than what it's currently worth. This is at a very low purchase price of $1 million because it's going to need considerable capex. We have about 25,000 per key. Christine, what was the asking price on this?
It doesn't have an asking price. They are just
Hmm.
accepting offers.
Any response back on our LOI, or did we submit one?
We did not submit any LOI for this
Next.
property.
Well, let's go look at next slide really quick.
I have 5.6, yes, sorry.
Let's go ahead and put an offer in for 4.9.
4.9.
I think the vacancy rate is probably what killed the deal, I'm assuming. Because
What
on the
vacancy- what
analytics,
vacancy
it was
rate?
at 41.9%.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's probably accurate, only because the there's not a lot of multifamily in that area. So
Yeah.
I think there's some room there and there's a good opportunity. Let's put an offer in at 4.9.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see what they say there at 4.9. What do you have the vacancy at 41 or 49%, Christine, on the underwriting?
Yes, I have it in the underwriting.
Let's take a little closer look at this one tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity here. Certainly, the property's in distress, and I think the seller more than likely is going to transact somewhere around the high fours. All right. Well, that concludes the first half of our presentation, hospitality to multifamily. Dan has stepped up and is looking at office to multifamily conversions. Got a few interesting opportunities, probably about 20 that we're currently working on. I
Yeah,
think
quite a few.
Yeah, just a few. We've got one in Dallas, Fort Worth that we're looking at fairly closely, as well as a handful of others. I think the office to multifamily is going to be the niche of the future. As you well know, if not, I'm going to inform you in the next 3 years, they're anticipating 1 of every 2 office complexes basically going out of business. Most of these offices that we're looking at are at a maybe 20 to 30, if not 50% occupancy, which means these owners are currently bleeding ferociously. So certainly a great opportunity to pick up some of these assets at 15 to 20 cents on the dollar. And Dan, why don't you jump into it? Let's take a look at what you have.
Okay. Christina, do I have co-host rights on this property or on the
Yes.
presentation? I do.
Yes,
Okay.
you can, yeah.
All right. I will do that. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. First property we're going to start off with is in the Ricci Towers. This is in Dallas, Texas. It's a little bit about the property. It is a 3-star office, 263,000 square feet and 11 stories, sitting on 6.76 acres, and it is zoned for MU3. My understanding of the zoning there in Dallas is that it should allow for multifamily on this property. We are going to contact the city to kind of shore that up and make sure everything is all good. In talking with the broker, we have some city councilmen that is on our side and big into the conversion opportunities. So we're hoping he could provide a little bit of help for us on that as well.
And so
Here's a
Dan,
couple of-
that's just one of 2 buildings that you're looking at in the property summary.
Yes, correct. I'm sorry. Yeah, there are 2 buildings there.
Yes, I believe it's somewhere around 452,000 square feet combined. So there are two 11-story buildings on just over 18 acres, built in 1971. So with that property, something you were just looking at, it was just building one or the north tower. So there's a north
north
tower,
tower.
there's the south tower.
Okay, thank you. Really nice, actually really pretty building from the outside. And on the inside as well. There's a picture of the front entry there. It's got a nice fountain outside. So it's got a nice gym inside and really kind of has a lot of the amenities I think that would be nice to have in a multifamily location. Here's a overview of the property, sitting by two of the freeways running through Dallas there, and not too far from a country club, which is probably never a bad thing. And the analytics on the property. Here we have, move some stuff out of my way. Market sales for exit price per unit is 255,000. Absorption rate, it's positive, not great, not what we like to see, and typically, but it is positive. Population growth is not much going on there, but we're kind of hoping that it's something we could work with, given some of the studio asking rents and the 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom rents in the market. Those are fairly significant. Subject property, though, when we underwrite this, we try to err on the side of caution and go with the property that we use to pull the analytics from, just to give us a worst case scenario on the rents. Let's see. And here's a look at the underwriting. IRR is great, phenomenal with that. One of the things that we did factor into the underwriting also is that we have a lot of leases that are active in the building, and our goal is to keep those leases going and active while we are in the middle of the conversion process. That way we're instantly producing revenue while we're going through the conversion process. And that's it. This property here, the seller was looking to get 65 million on the property. I submitted an LOI at 21 million. And currently we are under negotiations at 25 million for the property. So we're hoping that's something that we can make happen with the support of the city and, you know, a lot of working behind the scenes to get it all done and taken care of. Stephen, do you have anything that you would like to add to the property?
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about this earlier today, and something that we could maybe consider run by the broker. Let's talk to Scott and see if the seller would be interested in a lease option purchase agreement. So we wouldn't have to incur any debt. We could do maybe like a, say, call it a 8 to 10 year lease with an option to buy. And therefore we don't have to necessarily take a loan, and we could just do a straight raise to do the conversion, and then refi once the property's been stabilized, and we could possibly get to their asking price of that 25 million. But I think it may be a way for us to look at these conversion opportunities a little closer, being the fact that it's such a heavy such a heavy lift. This could be a way for us to kind of have some creative financing involved to help us get this project across the finish line. So let's you and I talk offline and see how we can best present that to Scott.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a great idea to me. And I will move on to the next one then. This one is 3-star office in Plano, Texas. Here's a little bit about the property. It's 250,000 square feet, 3-story building, sitting on 22 acres. So we get quite a bit of land that comes along with it. They are currently asking 24 million for the property. I believe it does have a parking garage involved. Just like the Ricci Towers also had a parking garage involved with that as well. Few pictures on the inside there. This building is completely vacant. So it makes it a little bit easier for us to get in and get started right away if we're able to acquire this property. Here's an overview of the location. I do believe there's a major freeway just to the south of this property or to the west. I can't remember exactly. We have two newer adult living facilities, the Evergreen at Plano and the Atria Canyon Creek there that are next to it. We're hoping with that, the property is zoned for light industrial. So it's not zoned for multifamily, so we'll have to work with the city to get that rezoned. We're kind of hoping that since there is the retirement community so close by, the city will be a little bit more willing to work with us. From what we've been told, it's a little bit of a struggle with the city of Plano, but we're hoping we can make something happen there.
Do you know if it's,
Good stuff.
is it assisted living or is it like 55 and older? Is it, do you
I
know?
believe it's 55 and over. But I could double check that, but I do not believe it's assisted living. I believe it's a retirement community. So I think it is 55 and over.
Yeah, I think what
Jeff-
we should do is also reach out to those two facilities and see how those, senior facilities are performing, right? Because it could be a play for us to do something similar, right? And just do, I mean, if they're at 100% occupancy and the demand is continuously rising for that type of niche, then I think this is something we could explore as an exit for us as well.
Okay. Take note of that. Sorry, as I write that down. All right, here's a look at the analytics. The absorption rate isn't as what we like to see, being negative 386, but the population growth is way above and beyond what we typically look for at 5%, with that being at 22%. And the rents in the area are fairly strong as well.
Yeah, look
For studio
at
rents
the,
going for 1,300.
look at the population growth for 55 plus.
Yeah. Fairly large there.
That's a leading indicator that this could be an ideal conversion for a 55 and older facility. So much of the two adjacent properties that we have on that map that we looked at earlier. So I think that would be a great play.
Yeah, the 30 to 39-year-olds don't seem to like it as much as everybody else, it looks like, according to those statistics there.
Yeah, everything's market specific, right? So it's going to be a case by case, but as long as we have a strong exit plan, then we can certainly move forward on it. Yeah.
And here's a look at the rent comps. We pulled these just to kind of double check and shore up kind of where we are with what the market rents we're showing and what we're seeing in the market with Renometer as well. And here's a look at the underwriting. At a purchase price of 16 million, it's a 32% IRR, which is great and exactly what we're looking for. And one thing to cover on both of these properties too is what we do when we're looking at these properties. We account for the 70% of the total square footage to be rentable space. And then we break that down into three groups of the studio apartments, which would make up about 50% of that. The one bedrooms will make up 30%, and then the two bedrooms will make up 20%. So that's where we get our room counts from and how we work those numbers. Originally, this price, what we did was we submitted an offer at 14 million on the property, a little bit lower than what it even had originally was penciling at there. And the seller countered back to us at 17 million with a balloon payment of 3 million once the construction was done. So right now we are currently in negotiations with them on that price point and trying to see what we could work.
So it's a $14 million purchase price. Well, it's a $17 million purchase price with a $3 million carry.
Yes.
0 interest, amortized over 30 years, come due in 36 months. How sweet is that?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're hoping that's enough. Though, like I was going to say, is our biggest hurdle that we're going to have to get over with this is the city of Plano. We're hoping to set up some meetings with them and see if it's something we can't make happen. And if we can, I think it'll be a great deal. So then that's all I got today, Stephen.
Fantastic. Any questions from the group? Looking at a new asset class, office to multifamily. This is going to be a weekly recurring theme. Strongly feel like this is going to be a huge play in the near future. Yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions before we conclude today's call.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Well, that's amazing, guys. What you guys are doing. So my question would be, like, what is the? I've heard that office to multifamily conversion could be like a very high play, like in regards to dollars that you need to spend on converting. What is the typical when you underwrite it? What is the typical way that you guys do it? Like, how do you guys know like how much would it cost to convert? Like basically like when you're doing the necking style.
Yeah, so kind of a high level look, we take the overall rentable square footage. We multiply by 0.7. So 70% of the space is going to be set aside for apartments. 30% is set aside for hallways and amenity space. Then with that remaining 70%, we chop that up into thirds or actually three categories. 50% is going to be studios, 30% one bedrooms, 20% two bedrooms, and the CapEx per door is going to be somewhere around $50,000 per door. Because we're basically adding everything, right? So plumbing, electrical, appliances, interior walls, etc. So that, you know, at that $50,000 per door, with the economy of scale, in this case, somewhere around 200 to 300 doors, I feel like we are in the ballpark as far as a CapEx for that conversion. If and when we get an LOI, you know, basically executed and countersigned, we'll get out on site, meet with a couple of general contractors, and we'll firm up those numbers. So then obviously some variables that were not being considered immediately is the exterior facade, any site work that's needed, as well as the roof and the mechanical, so electrical and plumbing. But I think at $50,000 a door, that should at least get us to what I would consider a strike price. And so that's how we kind of underwrite. And then of course, we'll bring in the other factors, cap rate, exit price per door, all our hard and soft costs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that's kind of how we look at a high level underwriting. And then once we get it countersigned, then we'll start stressing the deal to see whether or not we can move forward with that number.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. And do you guys typically see that buying office, is it like how many cents on the dollar do you guys typically see right now? The deals are coming through.
I think the magic number is going to be between 20 and 30 cents on the dollar.
To make it work to convert it?
To make it work to convert it. So for example, I think that the Ricci Towers we were looking at earlier, the replacement cost was somewhere, oh, I don't know if I lost you. Oh, here we go. The replacement cost on those buildings was $180 million, right? It was on the market for $60 million. We submitted an offer for basically call it $21 million. That's 30 cents on the dollar. They countered back at 25,975, which is a little on the high side. And so I think, you know, for us to maybe move forward on projects like that and others, it may make sense to do a lease with an option to purchase, do a land lease, control the asset. We don't have to get debt. You know, if it's a 10-year lease, we're going to go full cycle with these rates, and hopefully the rates will come down to where they were once at, right? And so I think that is ultimately going to be the magic combination and play, is a combination of stressing the deal with that 50,000 per door CapEx and controlling the asset with a land lease.
That makes sense. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting that they counter that they wanted 60, but they countered at 25.
25.975.
It blew me away when I got the response. It blew me away. I was a little surprised.
And they're bringing in about $200,000 a month in revenue.
Yeah.
And they're 50% occupied. So in theory, we could move all the leases to say one building and have, say, the South Tower be 100% occupied, and then work on the North Tower, convert that to a mix of multifamily, office, and say retail on the ground level, right? We're cash flowing through the project, you know, hopefully with the lease, so therefore we're not incurring any significant amount of debt. And then once we're finished with the North Tower, then move over to the South Tower. At that time, a lot of those leases will have had expired, and then we can start working on one floor at a time. It's a big project. My theory is go big or go home, but you know, it's going to happen. You know, when I started this, journey 2 years ago with the hospitality to multifamily, I was convinced that it was going to be the great play, and I converted 334 doors in Jacksonville. So why not do office to multifamily too?
Absolutely. But yeah, let's change the thinking from go big or go home to go big or go bigger.
Exactly. Because the next play is they're talking about a lot of these shopping centers and malls. The next 3 years, 50% of those are going to be out of business. So just to add to your go big or go bigger, we're talking about now converting these malls into micro communities. So if you look at most malls, they have shipping and receiving centers on the ground level to support their retail stores to receive goods, right? That would be a perfect play for an Amazon shipping and receiving facility, right, on the ground level. So you could have light industrial on the ground level. You do 60% multifamily, and the remaining 40% could be a combination of potentially a hotel, some high-end retail, some self-storage. You could turn the parking lots into a solar farm, right, and add covered parking. So that is going to be my next evolutionary jump. Once we start to convert these office complexes into multifamily, that's going to be the next play, is converting shopping malls into micro communities.
That's a very interesting play.
It's going to happen.
About it.
We're recording this on Zoom, so I'm locked in now. I have to make it happen. I'm putting it out to the universe.
All right, let's watch this tape 3 years after today.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's also write a letter to our future selves.
That's what I do every day. I manifest every evening. Got to do it.
Gotta do it, man. Well, that was super awesome, man. And guys, thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate you joining me.
you.
You're welcome anytime.
Yeah, I'll be joining probably a little bit more often because I'm getting hotel deals on my coming across my desk. I'm not sure, but they're like on the smaller side, so I probably would be picking your brain, or maybe even working together on some of them. But sometimes maybe it doesn't make sense to convert them to multifamily. Maybe you just leave them as is and just do BRR and sell it. But if you don't mind, guys, I would be probably picking your brain on some of the stuff.
That's what we're here for.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
All right. My pleasure. Well, everyone, that concludes our call for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And we'll see you next Thursday for our conversion call. You guys have a great day, glorious weekend. Be safe out there. And thanks for joining. Take care. Bye now.
Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.